and I'm running for Texas State Senate District 18. So thank you all for being here, and I'm going to start by telling you why I'm running for office. And it's a reason I bet a lot of y'all can relate to. It kind of all starts with, I'm kind of fed up. I'm fed up with the way that things have been running in our state for a while now. I'm frustrated with the way that so many of our neighbors can't afford their medications, have to turn down an ambulance because they know it's going to be more than they can afford, and having the highest rate of uninsured citizens of any state. I'm frustrated the way that our public schools are not funded in a way that our students are, fairly able to get access to the best opportunities that they deserve. Our teachers deserve the pay and the time to be able to take care, of kids for reasonable sized classroom, and to have the support staff, the technology, and the supplies that they need. I'm frustrated, about when bridges collapse, because of flooding. And I'm frustrated when I wake up cold in my own house, such as last February when the blackout happened during that hard freeze. I don't know if y'all had the same experience here, but we had property damage from pipes bursting. We were quite literally carrying buckets of water to our elderly neighbors because our wells froze over. And then afterwards, he's an old retired master plumber, was sharing the tools that we needed to repair our pipes after it all thawed out. And I'm fed up of having to fend for ourselves in so many ways, because we can carry water for each other, and we can share the tools that we need to repair our pipes, but I can't keep the grid on with me and my neighbors. I can go ask next door for a cup of sugar, but we can't really crowdfund in the neighborhood for somebody's chemotherapy that they might need. These are things that our state legislature should be doing to help us to be good neighbors alongside us. When I woke up cold that day in the dark in my own house, that was the last straw. I said that somebody ought to do something about this. And I decided that I am somebody, and I'm going to do something about this. For too many years, elected officials, in my county in particular, such as my opponent, Senator Colkers, have run unopposed. They don't have challengers. Nobody stands up against them. They just get their seat back for free. If an election is supposed to be an employee review, if it's supposed to be our opportunity to tell them what we actually think, if we're happy with what they've done with that power that we gave them. When they don't have anybody else on the ballot, we don't get to give that feedback. You can't say none of the above on our ballots here in Texas. And so I'm running to make sure that we have a voice for everybody who disagrees, everyone who's not being heard with the way things are currently being run. Senator Colkers has been in the state legislature since the year 2000, before you had to kick off your shoes at the airport. Things have changed a little bit since the year 2000, and I think it's time for something new. I think it's time for her to have a serious challenger, somebody who wants to use that position to do the good things that we deserve. We deserve bold investment in rural infrastructure, such as fixing the grid, modernizing it so we have a diverse energy portfolio for the future. And then making sure that our waterways, our dams are in good repair, our bridges can withstand seasonal flooding. So I know that the folks in LaGrange, Texas, had some significant flooding damage a few years back just from heavy rain. And we can invest in these things to prepare for situations like that. We deserve well-funded public education. A lot of rural communities, when I talk to them, they tell me about how their school, usually the one school, K through 12, is the beating heart of the community. That's why Friday Night Lights is so important to us. The football, the volleyball, the basketball, the fairs, the school programs, because that's our pride and joy in our small towns. That's our community. And so when we're underfunding them, when those teachers aren't getting paid what they need and they need a second job, we're letting everybody down. And we're gambling with our kids' futures, especially during the pandemic. We know that they deserve better, and I want to make that happen. And we deserve to expand healthcare access here in Texas. So Texas is in a position where we could accept millions of dollars in Medicaid expansion funds from the federal government, bring our tax dollars back home to us, where we're proud of not having a state income tax. And you'd think we'd be just as happy to bring our federal taxes back home to benefit Texans. I talked earlier about how we have the highest rate of uninsured citizens. There's money that we're leaving sitting on the table that we could use to fix that. And I want to make that happen. So we have all this opportunity to do good things for ourselves, for our neighbors. Senator Colkers has been there for 20 plus years, and she's had these same opportunities. So I'm also running for office because When nobody runs against them, all that means is that we need folks to step up to do these things. And I hope with this campaign to encourage other folks to step up for their communities too. After the freeze wasn't the very first time I ever considered running for office. It's the first time I really put my foot to the ground and did something about it. When the power came back on, I just Googled it, how to run for office in Texas. I landed on the Texas Ethics Commission website. That's a bit of a difficult read on that website. I'm figuring out how to do it myself. But that wasn't the first time anyone had ever suggested the idea to me. There's a group, Run for Something. They advocate for young folks, from diverse backgrounds to run for local offices, like school board, city council, mosquito and water boards, whatever in your community needs folks to run. So we need good folks to run for office at every level. I'm sure you'll notice that the Democratic primary has a lot less spaces filled in than the Republican primary does. And it's a real thing that I've heard a lot of folks talk about. Well, I think I'm going to vote in the Republican primary because, that's where the sheriff candidates are and I want to have a vote in my local elections. We can't talk about voting up and down the ballot if there is nobody at the bottom of the ballot. And we've got to fix that by motivating folks to run for office. I think if you've been paying attention to some of the elected officials we got lately, you might agree with me that the bar is kind of low. I think there's a lot of folks who think that they're not qualified, that they don't have the experience, they don't know what it takes, that they're not ready to run for office. We're a lot more qualified than we think we are. I think that we are the ones that we've been waiting for. Or we know somebody who is, somebody who's compassionate and stays up at night thinking about what their neighbors need and what's going on in their communities. Somebody who's got that sharp wit and who's ready to use it to solve problems. We all know somebody. Sometimes it's ourselves. Sometimes it's family or a friend we know. And we got to encourage these folks to run for office, to step up for our communities. So those are some of the reasons that I'm running for office. I talked about the things that are most important to me: rural infrastructure, public education, healthcare access. I focus on those because that's what I hear from the community folks that I speak with. They tell me those are the things that are most important, that are most pressing to them. And like a lot of my neighbors, I've had to turn down an ambulance ride that I probably should have taken up on, or a prescription that my doctor prescribed, but I can get by without it, because it's probably going to be expensive. I've been unemployed and not had insurance for a period and had to cancel doctor's appointments. We've all been through spots like that where we know that things shouldn't be this difficult to access the healthcare and the resources that we need. Other issues that I'm excited to advocate for, and there are so many, but I'm a big voting rights activist. Whereas my opponent was one of the authors, one of many authors behind last year's voting restriction bills, SD-18. I went and testified before the redistricting committee and against House Bill 6, another one of the many voter suppression bills that happened during this past session. And I went to advocate for our rural communities because some of these new requirements that they can push through that impact volunteers who work our elections, or the ability for us to help our neighbors get their mail ballots by offering to help them with a mail ballot application. Because in Texas, only a limited number of folks are able to vote by mail, including folks over 65. And they've made it so that way, certain officials cannot suggest it or recommend or send an application. Even if you've been voting by mail for the past 10 years, you can't just help you out with it because we're trying to be a good neighbor. You have to specifically ask. And little things like this hurt rural communities a lot. They hurt us a lot. When I worked the election in 2020, Cooks Point and outside of Snook, Texas, would not have had a voting location had I not stepped up, because we don't have enough people stepping up to work elections. They would not have had an alternate judge. And so when we do things like this that encourage people, I don't know if I want to work an election, I'm worried about those new rules. What if I make a mistake and I get charged with a felony about it? That makes it so much harder for our communities, for our local county election administrators to run their elections. And I would like the state to stop meddling and infringing on those voting rights. I'm a big advocate for pro-choice legislation. I would love to help to reduce unwanted pregnancies in the first place and to mitigate those problems and address the root causes that lead to somebody making these decisions. And to defend the right of folks to make those choices between themselves and their doctors. So I attended the Women's March I believe it was in September, perhaps, July, in Austin to add my voice to that crowd of folks. It was a good time. So Willie Nelson was there to speak as well. So I think it was the first time I've gotten to see him, so I'm happy I got the chance. So I'm a nonprofit leader in the LGBTQ+ community up in the Brazos Valley, because I'm here to fight for our entire community and to not attack a vulnerable few for political gain. So there's a lot that matters, and there's a lot that the state Senate and the entire state legislature can do. We've got plenty of room and opportunities to make Texas a friendlier place, and I'm here to fight for us. I'm here to be a voice, for those of us who haven't been heard in a while, and to make sure that everybody's got a real choice. So I hope that you'll vote for me starting this Monday. Early voting starts Monday. Election day itself is March 1st, and hopefully I'll get your vote. So I'm the only candidate running on the Democratic ticket for State Senate District 18. And again, just so you can remember it, that last name is Tutt, T-U-T-T. You'll find it on the ballot. I'll make sure to get my business card to everybody here. And the other things that my campaign needs is, I'm not a career politician. I've never run for office before. So I work my 40 hours a week. I drive 30 minutes to work and back. So I don't have a whole lot of time. I don't have a whole lot of money. I don't independently fund my campaign. I don't have $1.77 million sitting in my campaign account waiting for something to spend it on. Every dollar that I get, every single donation, my campaign is funded on small dollar donations from people like y'all, from people like us. And that money goes directly into paying my campaign manager to help me keep my head on straight, paying for union print shops to produce the literature that we need to help spread the word. So we're always looking for volunteers to help us with that work, because it takes a village, right? And one opportunity I've got for folks to help is tomorrow we'll actually be in Victoria. Victoria County is part of Senate District 18 as well. So we'll be there from 11 to 4, right next to the farmers market, hosting a blood drive. If anybody here is eligible, willing to participate, come on and see us. When I spoke with South Texas Blood and Tissue, they explained that every donation stays in the South Texas community. It goes to help people who need it, when they need it. They're lucky. They told me that they are lucky and having a good time if they can manage a 3-day supply of blood at any given moment. That's a razor-thin margin that we're operating on. And it's one of the most direct ways to help people, to help our neighbors in need. To literally give of yourself, for somebody that you don't know, just because it's the right thing to do. It's a way to be there for each other. So if you can be there, or maybe you know someone, especially if you have any friends in Victoria, let them know that we've got a blood drive coming up. And this is not about, I'll be there, thanking folks for their participation. But this is not about politics. This is about being there for our community. Because, when we're there for each other, that's how we get through everything. That's how we get through, hurricanes. That's how we get through pandemics. That's how we get through floods, and we get through fires and freezes. We're there for each other. And so hopefully you'll join me tomorrow in Victoria with the blood drive is one way that we can be there for each other. So that's why I'm running. That's what I'm up against. And that's what I'm doing here today. So I'm really excited to meet y'all. If anybody has any questions, I'm so happy to answer them. And I hope that I get a chance to make every single one of you proud in the state legislature someday. Did anyone have any questions? I hope that I did. I tried to fit it all into one conversation. So should have known I'd been a politician one day with as much as I can run my mouth. So my husband says at least. Yeah. So we're good. Brandon, do you have any? No. Cool.